Hi, I'm Oliver, and this is my presentation on my creative process. So let's first talk about who I am. So first and foremost, I'm a student. I go to Cal U. I've been here for 2 years, and I am studying graphic design. I am an explorer. I explore different mediums, techniques, feelings, colors, and how I want to convey all of that. I am a designer. So that one is very important because that's what I want to do with my career. So I am a communicator because I'm a designer. So I want to learn the best and most efficient way to communicate feelings and how that all works. I'm also an artist. So I enjoy the cathartic experience of expressing intense emotions, ideas, feelings in a way that's easy to understand. Where did this all come from? How did my process get refined to the point that it is now? So it's not finished, but here's how I came about to where I'm at. I do these things called that I've been calling graphic design interviews. So what I do is I talk to professionals in the field in these really cool conversations about their process and how they go about their work, how they attract clients, the thing that makes them stand out. So Will, he's a UX UI designer, which means that he develops the way that websites and apps visually look, which is really exciting. That's really cool. And then Christian, he has worked with huge clients. He worked on the Spotify rebrand. He worked with Nike. He was employed there for a while. He's worked with with Instagram and Facebook. So he's worked with huge clients. Hoodspa, they're another great design firm. So they've worked with Red Bull, they've worked with Disney. They did a little bit of work on The Greatest Showman. They all have amazing work, amazing portfolios. And so what I do is I reach out to them and I just send them a friendly email. It's like, hey, can we just discuss some stuff? I want to hear about your process and how you go about it so that I can learn from professionals in the field that I want to go into. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the process that I go for my graphic design. So this is a school project that I'm wrapping up now. So the first step is to look at what's already out there. So this is the research part of it all. So I look at the competition, I look at what's already been done, I look at what has been successful in the past, what has failed in the past, and how that all works. And then with that information, which you can see in my notebook, I have a bunch of pages like that. I start to work on the feeling. So what do I want it to feel like? So for this brand, I wanted it to feel warm. I wanted it to be friendly, authentic, and I wanted it to feel masculine. And I wanted it to feel almost like a neo vintage city cowboy feeling is the best way that I could describe it. So then with that information, I go forward and create a brief. So a brief is something that it has the kind of final idea of what the project is and how it's going to work. It has all the information about the client, it has the end user, it has how everything is going to work. So the next step is whenever I start to create my own little visual world. So I go about this by creating mood boards. You can see two examples of a mood board on the right. And what that is it's a way for me to visually identify the vernacular that I want to explore within the design. So in the first part, you can see that I look at the way that the type was used. Everything feels kind of the same, but they're all very different from each other. So I look at typography, I look at colors, I look at hierarchy. So what letters or what words are bigger, which ones are smaller, and how they all relate to each other. Whereas in the second one, I was focused on the way that shape played a role in the graphic design. So there's these really cool and expressive geometric shapes, and I just begin to explore that. So then from there, I take the information, the visual vernacular that I've created in the mood boards, and I start to apply that to my own designs. So the way that I work is I make a huge mess of everything to get all of those ideas out there, and then I start the process of weeding them down. You can see in this short little screenshot that I took, the color palettes coming together, you can see all the different fonts that I've been trying out. And then that leads me to the final part, which is where I refine and finalize the designs. So I take all of those logos. I think for this project, I had over 20 logos that I created, and I find out which ones feel exactly how I want them to. And then I take that and I assign color palettes. I figure out what colors communicate the feeling that I want to. And then I create photos to go along with it. So, like, this would be kind of how it would be presented to the client, which is really important. You can see the typography also, and I explore what the capabilities are. So now we get to the cool stuff. So now we can get to the art. And you'll see that my process is very similar for art as it is with design. So I first begin by looking at what's out there. So I do master studies. Master studies are really cool because I get to interpret fine pieces of art from old times, and I get to interpret them in a way that I can visually understand. So I'm creating my own understanding of these pieces. So the bottom two and the top two on the right, those are all by Cezanne. Um, and I can really look and dive into what makes those unique. I can look at composition, I can look at the way that the lighting is, and I can understand and start to figure out all these visual cues that convey what they wanted to. So for this project, I really wanted to create a still life. So a moment captured in time. Um, so I took a look at all the still lives that were out there, not all of them, most still lives that were out there. And I started to interpret them into a way that I could visually understand in a style that I understood. So that way I can move forward and create mine. So next I started to establish a feeling and a mood board, which is really important, like I said last time. So if we look at this mood board, we can see that it's very colorful, it's playful, it's spontaneous, it feels effortless. And that's all the feelings that I want to get across. It feels very playful and it feels very fresh. Um, so then I can take that information and I can start to build my own little reality around this piece. So exploration, this part's cool. So here you can see that I started to explore different still life compositions and how that will all work and relate to each other. You can also see that I started to explore different mediums. So in the top left-hand corner, there's a monotype print. And so the way that that works is you get a printing plate and then you put ink all over it. And then you wipe away the pieces that you don't want to be inked up, for a lack of better words. So I wipe away the ink that I don't want in the final print. So then I put the piece of paper down and I rub to transfer the ink. And then that produces print that's unique, and it's something that I can't do, that I can't get that exact print again. I have to, so each one's unique and each one's its own special thing. Um, you can see in the next one there's watercolor, and then in the next one there's markers, but then over top of it I did an overlay with a translucent piece of paper. And then I was able to create the colors in a pastel and draw out where I'd want the shadows to be to create this very graphic, punchy look. Um, I want to direct your attention to the bottom left because that one's really fun. So what I did was I cut out different pieces of paper in an effort to emulate Matisse, and I organized them into a still life composition that was dynamic and fun. I really love clusters and still lives. I've learned that through this process. So I started to explore that. So these next few explorations were really exploring what mediums could do for me. So in the first one, I worked from an observation drawing, and then I created two other replicas of it, each with a little bit different interpretation. One was with markers and the other one was with watercolors. Something else I want to point out is you can see in this slide very much that I'm exploring color, in the sense that I have little color palettes that have popped up. Something that I like to do is I have an enormous amount of color swatches, like paint swatches that you get at the hardware store. So I start to explore those and I look at how the colors relate to each other and how I can communicate with that. Um, in the next one, you can see the under part of that overlay paper. And then you can see a graphite drawing of some peaches, followed by a color pencil drawing of those same peaches, and how those both feel different. So I'm really exploring the best way to convey that. Then you can see another print, and in the bottom left, so the bottom left and the bottom right, those two are very much related, which I'm sure you can see. The bottom left is a cubist rendering of a still life that I then painted in watercolors. So I really wanted to explore all the different avenues that I could get to what I want to communicate. So now we can talk about the final step, the creation of the art. So the final piece hasn't actually been created yet. And I think that that's really exciting because there's endless possibilities for what the answer to my question could be. Um, there's endless possibilities. And what I'm doing is I'm researching what's the best way to convey exactly what I want to. That way I can be able to just provide the best explanation for, in a visual sense, for what I want to say. So I think it's really important to know that the final project isn't done yet because I'm still researching it and I want to be in control of everything that goes out there. So I want to understand why I'm making the decisions that I am to produce the piece that I am, which is very important.